This is a story about a single bolt, a bolt that was never installed, a bolt that on January 5, 2024 led to a gaping hole in the side of an Alaska Airlines flight at 16,000 feet. But this isn't a story about one mistake. It's a story about a corporate culture that made that mistake inevitable. This is the story of how Boeing, a titan of aviation, lost its way, how a relentless pursuit of profit over safety led to the deaths of 346 people, a guilty plea to criminal fraud, and over $12 billion in losses and fines. It's a story of ignored warnings, silenced whistleblowers, and the corporate culture so broken that it put the entire world at risk. This is the anatomy of a corporate disaster. January 5, 2024. Alaska Airlines Flight 1282 is climbing out of Portland, Oregon. Suddenly, a panel on the side of the brand new Boeing 737 MAX 9 rips off with a deafening roar. The cabin depressurizes instantly. A child's shirt is torn from his body and sucked out into the night sky. Miraculously, no one is killed. The investigation by the National Transportation Safety Board was swift and damning. They found that 4 critical bolts, designed to hold the door plug in place, were missing. They were never installed. Workers at Boeing's factory had removed the plug to fix a separate issue and simply forgot to put the bolts back on. But this wasn't just a simple mistake. It was a symptom of a much deeper disease. This incident came just 5 years after 2 catastrophic crashes of the same aircraft model. In October 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 crashed, killing all 189 people on board. 5 months later, in March 2019, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 crashed, killing all 157. A total of 346 lives were lost. The cause of those crashes was a flawed flight control system called MCAS, a system that Boeing had hidden from pilots and regulators. The company had been warned repeatedly by its own engineers and by whistleblowers that the system was dangerous. They ignored those warnings. After the crashes, Boeing promised things would change. CEO David Calhoun, who took over in 2020, declared that safety was now the company's top priority. But the Alaska Airlines incident proved that the culture of cutting corners was still alive and well. So how did it come to this? How did a company once revered for its engineering prowess become a symbol of corporate negligence? The answer lies in a fundamental shift in its corporate culture that began decades ago. For most of its history, Boeing was run by engineers. The focus was on building the best, safest planes in the world. But after its merger with McDonnell Douglas in 1997, a new culture took over. It was a culture of financial engineering driven by Wall Street and the relentless focus on shareholder value. The new mantra was simple: faster, cheaper, now. To compete with its rival Airbus, Boeing began to aggressively cut costs and accelerate production schedules. They outsourced critical parts to the lowest bidders. They pressured suppliers to deliver faster, even if it meant sacrificing quality. And they created a work environment where employees were afraid to speak up about safety concerns. There was constant pressure to push planes out the door. Quality was a secondary consideration. It was all about the schedule. This culture had devastating consequences. First, the 787 Dreamliner. In 2013, the entire global fleet of 787 Dreamliners was grounded after batteries on several planes caught fire. The cause was traced back to faulty components from a subcontractor, a direct result of Boeing's cost-cutting and fragmented supply chain. Then, the KC-46 tanker. The company's military division was also plagued by problems. The Air Force repeatedly halted deliveries of the KC-46 tanker after finding tools, debris, and other foreign objects left inside the planes during production, a clear sign of a broken quality control system. And all of this culminated in the 737 MAX, a plane that was rushed to market to compete with an Airbus jet, with a fatal design flaw that was deliberately hidden from the world. After the Alaska Airlines incident, the full weight of the US government came down on Boeing. On July 8, 2024, the Department of Justice made a stunning announcement. They determined that Boeing had violated a 2021 deferred prosecution agreement that had protected it from criminal charges related to the 2 fatal MAX crashes. Boeing, they said, had failed to make the promised changes to its safety culture. Boeing was now officially a criminal defendant. To avoid a trial that would have exposed even more of its dirty laundry, Boeing agreed to plead guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the United States. The plea deal included a $243.6 million fine, an investment of at least $455 million in its compliance and safety programs, the appointment of an independent monitor to oversee the company for 3 years. In total, the company has paid over $1.1 billion in fines, victim compensation, and safety investments. And the financial bleeding hasn't stopped. In 2024 alone, Boeing lost a staggering $11.8 billion. But the most shocking part of this story isn't the money. It's the human cost. The 346 people who died. The whistleblowers who tried to warn the company only to be ignored or retaliated against. John Barnett, a former Boeing quality manager who had raised concerns about the 787 production line, was found dead in his truck in March 2024 in the middle of a deposition against the company. So what can we learn from the fall of Boeing? 1. Culture comes from the top. Boeing's leadership paid lip service to safety, but their actions and incentives all pointed towards one goal: increasing the stock price. When leadership prioritizes profits over people, the entire organization becomes corrupted. 2. You can't outsource quality. Boeing's strategy of outsourcing critical components to a global network of suppliers created a system where no one was truly accountable for quality. It was a recipe for disaster. 3. Listen to your whistleblowers. Boeing had multiple employees who tried to sound the alarm. They were the company's last line of defense, and they were ignored. A healthy company doesn't just tolerate dissent, it encourages it. The story of Boeing is a tragedy. It's a story of a great American company that lost its soul. It's a cautionary tale that should be taught in every business school and every boardroom in the world. The road back for Boeing will be long and difficult. It will require more than just new procedures and new executives. It will require a complete cultural rebirth, a return to the values of engineering excellence and safety above all else that once made the company great. Because when you're in the business of building machines that fly at 30,000 feet, there is no room for error, and there is no price that can be put on a human life.